Hi, welcome back. For those of you who are new here, thank you for tuning in. My name is Mamta, and I'm a board-certified cancer doctor with a medical degree from UCLA and a master's in public health from Harvard. So as hopeful as I was that would be on to something new by now, here we are with vaccines and mandates still somehow affecting us. Now, you may be thinking, nah, what is she talking about? Spring is here, the world is opening up, COVID infections and deaths are at an all-time low. How is this topic still even relevant? Well, because good people with big hearts are still being treated like second-class citizens, denied opportunities and punished simply for being different. You see, this conversation has really never been about a virus. On the contrary, it's been about cancel culture, censorship, erosion of freedom, and subversion of values. It's been about a country, a world really, that's so deeply divided that neighbors are afraid of one another and friends no longer speak. So even though we seem to be inching closer to pre-COVID normalcy with businesses dropping mandates and travel resuming without quarantine, the truth is that tension and polarization remain at all-time highs. Moreover, public trust in science and the system is lower than ever. People are fast losing faith in doctors, hospitals, experts, you name it. Even my Harvard newsletter had to recently acknowledge public health is on the brink. And so here I am yet again, hoping to do my small part in speaking to a different perspective, with the ultimate goal always being to bridge the divide. And so let's start with a powerhouse of a woman, Dee Byrne. She's a retired Army colonel who served her country for 29 years, a double board certified doctor and surgeon, and a nun who's taken her religious vows. Sister Dee has provided medical relief in Afghanistan and Haiti, treated Mother Teresa and 9/11 victims, and cared for the undocumented and uninsured. She obviously knows a thing or two about science and service. But here's the kicker. Sister Dee was denied a religious exemption from the vaccine mandate. In fact, the health department went so far as to threaten to withdraw her medical license unless she agreed to vaccination. This ultimatum was despite the fact that her medical license is used to serve the poorest of the poor, despite the fact that she has confirmed natural immunity, despite the fact that her objection was faith-based, because she believes this vaccine was developed using aborted fetal cell lines. And regardless of whether you or I agree, abortion is an absolute no for any devout Catholic. I was stunned when I heard this story. How could bureaucrats sitting in some office decide whether or not Sister Dee's morals passed their muster? How could they force her to make an impossible decision? Disobey your most sacred belief or give up your life work? How could they wield their authority against a woman with more medical expertise and experience than 99% of the planet? How could they portray her selfish when she is the living definition of selflessness? The more I thought about this, the more I wondered, could this simply be a case of misunderstanding between decision makers and the public at large? Let me explain. Upon releasing my first video against mandates, I was caught off guard by a set of comments that came from my fellow physicians. Despite being the same age, the same ethnicity, the same gender, even the same profession as me, our thoughts couldn't have been more different. Dr. 1 publicly chastised me, saying, "You should know better." And Dr. 2 privately disagreed with me, explaining, "We can't trust people to make the right choice, so we must make their choices for them." Their delivery contrasted, but the message was the same. Everyone should do as we say since we know best. Now, honestly, this reasoning really confused me as I thought, well, what if doctors don't always know what's best for our patients? What if what's right for us is actually wrong for them? Yet I also understood where they were coming from. My colleagues have dedicated their lives to serving others. Of course, they're eager to share their knowledge. It saves lives, and we're all the better for it. But there is a crucial caveat that we must remember, one that ultimately affected Sister Dee Dee. You see, most doctors work under the impression that everyone has the same objective, to extend life at any and all cost. The assumption is that all of us are cookie-cutter replicas, marching to the same beat and driven by the same end goal. Thus, doctors assume that their one-size recommendations not only fit all, but actually save all. So of course they're convinced that everyone should follow their expert advice. Whether or not they realize it, doctors consider medicine to be a sort of technical profession, comparable to, say, mechanical engineering or information technology. Meaning that when I take my car to the mechanic and I'm told that the brakes require replacement, I listen. Or if I take my laptop to the IT expert and I'm told that the hard drive requires backup, I listen. Well, same goes for modern medicine. If I take my lab work to the doctor and am told that the elevated cholesterol requires a pill, I tend to listen. As long as I trust these authorities, I listen to them, and voila, problem solved, everyone's happy. Now the trouble begins when I go rogue, when I don't listen and throw their rulebook out the window. The system quickly labels me non-compliant, and the immediate assumption is that I'm either stupid or stubborn, that I must be rescued from my destructive choices and my irrational behavior. But if we humble ourselves enough to step back, we realize that there might just be an altogether different explanation. What if their basic premise itself is flawed? What if, contrary to what the system believes, living forever and ever on end is not always our primary motive? What if some people just march to a different beat? What if medicine is less like mechanics or IT to these folks and more like politics or religion because values matter? What if behavior that seems selfish or crazy actually stems from someone's most cherished beliefs and principles, as opposed to their inability to understand the scientific gospel or their unwillingness to follow expert guidance? The truth of the matter is that we often risk our health for other things we value, such as pleasure, the woman who eats cake or a cookie every single day, or leisure, the professional who relaxes with a few cocktails every night, or adventure, the youngster who insists on his motorcycle joyrides, or patriotism, the high school graduate who enlists in the military, or religion, the Jehovah's Witnesses who refuses a blood transfusion, or altruism, the nurse who tirelessly travels the world to different disaster sites, or vanity, the teenager who hits the tanning bed on the regular, or devotion, the seeker who meditates without food or drink for weeks on end, or identity, the cancer patient who refuses chemotherapy for fear of losing her hair, or passion, the extreme athlete who risks it all for a dream, or love, the mother who holds sleepless vigil for her sick child, or autonomy, the purist who refuses any and all pills, or activism, the girl who insists on an education despite the deadly consequences. These real-life examples are precisely why forcing our beliefs onto another is never a good idea. Assuming we have the answers for others without even getting to know them simply doesn't work. Whether the experts admit it or not, the bottom line is that health decisions are driven by values, and people prioritize values differently. As tempting as it is to assume that science is black and white, that there are certain things that we all must agree on, the truth is that we are not always rational beings. And once you get over the shock of the statement, you realize that this, in fact, is what the beauty of being human really means. This diversity is what makes us interesting and what differentiates us from artificial intelligence. These idiosyncrasies animate our souls and fuel our spiritual fires. Now, misunderstanding will continue as long as we keep looking out through the same lens. Western medicine has taken on a mind-heavy approach in which we live in our brains and pride ourselves on intellect and logic, where there's only value in heroic and aggressive intervention, where data is king, since medical history and medication is all that matters. It's linear, standardized, one-size-fits-all thinking. You have this problem, we give you this solution. And while this is undoubtedly a valid framework that benefits many, we would do well to remember that there is another way, one that leads from the heart. This alternative approach invites us to really get to know someone, to consider the entirety of their being, to welcome their beliefs, to respect their fears, and to champion their dreams. And this is why the ultimate job of the healthcare worker must always be to educate and empower others to make smart decisions with accurate information, not to convince or coerce them to do as we deem fit. When our intention is purely to connect and collaborate with our patients and not to impose our agenda or our expectations, no matter how well-meaning they may be, there is no longer friction when we come across a free thinker who chooses the road less traveled. Instead of feeling challenged by the way others do things or feeling offended when someone doesn't listen, we are then able to hold safe space for everyone, rebels included. When we grant others the permission to fully be themselves, we might just give ourselves the opportunity to do the same. As the wise saying goes, live and let live. Love always requires freedom. Thank you so much.